I haven't done that in a while. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live public hearing of Pittsburgh City Council for today, which is October 5th, 2021. This afternoon, we are joined by council members Erica Strasburger, Councilwoman Deborah Gross, Councilman Anthony Coghill, Councilman Bobby Wilson, and our council president, Teresa Kale Smith.
What's her name?
I'm Councilman Kraus. Will be chairing this afternoon's public hearing. Madam Clerk, this is in reference to a petition that was filed by the residents of City of Pittsburgh. It is Bill 1939. And so, Madam Clerk, to start, could we please have the purpose of the bill?
Bill 1939, petition from the residents of the City of Pittsburgh requesting a public hearing before City Council relative to file 2021-1906 in ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code Title 9, zoning Article 4, Chapter 908, Public RAM Districts, by true addition of a new section, Section 90803D5, Oakland Subdistrict E, OPRE, Oakland Crossings. The petition is valid in accordance with the Home Rule Charter.
Okay, Madam Clerk, thank you very much. With that, we will go. There is no presentation at the public hearing. With this, we are going to go directly into our registered speakers. And our first registered speaker is our petitioner, Andrea Boyko. And I believe most everyone will be joining us on the Zoom platform today. So, Andrea, you are up and you have your 3 minutes.
Hi, hello. My name is Andrea Boyko. I live on Parkview Avenue in Central Oakland, and the matter before you today is a bill to rezone a big chunk of my neighborhood. This bill was written by a private developer and handed to council by the mayor. And the question that you all have to answer for yourselves is, what is the appropriate action to take with it? I'm asking you to take no action on it. I'm asking you to hold it, and I will explain why. Normally, zoning legislation is something that is worked through the Department of City Planning. Some of you might believe that the Planning Commission and the Department of City Planning are the same entity. They are not. Or that they have a similar public process in considering zoning changes. They don't. The Department of City Planning engages with the public to solicit input, consider competing interests, and contextualize the uses and massing of a proposed zoning change. Public input is incorporated into the planning process through an open, iterative, taxpayer-funded process. Only once the planning department has conducted such a process would the planning commission be invited to review it. And only after that review would city council be invited to vote on it. And only after that vote would it reach the mayor for signature. The bill before you has skipped that process entirely and started from the wrong end of the line. Moving this bill to the planning commission would set a dangerous precedent for every Pittsburgh neighborhood. By sending this bill to the planning commission, you'd be saying, in effect, that our neighborhoods are for sale to developers with political pull, and that the public planning process is meaningless, that anyone with deep pockets can buy up residential neighborhoods and then rewrite the rules for their own benefit, and that the onus is on the public to take the time to explain to you why that's a bad idea. The Oakland plan process is working for Oakland. Let it. Support the professionals who work for the city, the public servants who have been sweating it out with us for the past 2 years to solicit public input, identify neighborhood priorities, and negotiate the best possible solutions to a ton of really thorny issues. When the process is finished and Oakland's zoning map has been updated, then you can take up this bill again and consider whether all that work should be undone. Until then, please hold it. Thanks.
Thanks, Andrea. Our second registered speaker is Alan Cisco. Alan, are you with us?
I think so. Hello.
Hey, Alan.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Alan Cisco. I am also an Oakland resident. I live with my wife, my 8-year-old son on Orpwood Street in South Oakland, 2 doors down from my parents in their 70s. I love Oakland. I love its amenities, its location, the opportunities it provides and has provided my family. My parents moved to Orpwood Street 40 some years ago and were able to purchase a modest, affordable home for themselves so that my mom could walk to work as a nurse. at what is now UPMC. My hope for this conversation and for council is that council, the developer, Walnut Capital, Oakland Planning and Development, City Planning, the Zoning Commission, and any other stakeholders involved in this project commit to developing this project and this conversation in an equitable way that respects the community's desire and need for affordable housing. I would like Oakland to be open and affordable for everyone, like it was for my family 40 years ago. And for that to happen, we need to pay attention and make sure that new development that creates new housing creates housing that is equitable and affordable for not just folks from the suburbs, but for folks of all walks of life and folks who live in Oakland currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Our next registered speaker is Kathleen Gallagher. Kathleen, you with us?
Yes, I am here. My name is Kathy Gallagher. I live at 234 North Dithridge Street and am a very long time Oakland resident. My grandparents moved here in 1914 and we've been here ever since. I speak today to oppose not necessarily the project because I don't have enough information about the project, but rather the process. I have spent countless hours in the past 2 years working on developing the Oakland plan. Prior to that, I was also involved in developing the Oakland 2025 plan. Zoning changes without community input contradict every recommendation that I have seen in the proposed plan for Oakland. While I welcome Walnut Capital's scheduling of meetings to inform the public, I believe that the community should be involved from the beginning. This process feels very much top-down rather than community up. I consider myself very fortunate to be surrounded by magnificent educational, medical, and cultural institutions, but I find more and more frequently that I have to remind people that we live here too, that there are many, many permanent residents here. I believe that a project of this magnitude, which will impact every single one of us, deserves community input from the very beginning. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Kathleen. Elena Zitzoff, welcome. You're our next registered speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Elena Zitzoff. I have lived in South Oakland for 41 years. I am opposed to Walnut Capital's ordinance for Oakland crossings being sent to the Planning Commission. They are sneaking it in to avoid the regulations of the Oakland Public Realm D, such as residential compatibility, actually revoking it. They are rewriting the zoning code to meet their developmental goals, ignoring the results of the Oakland 2025 plan, and trying to beat the clock on the neighborhood plan for Oakland. There is a process for changing zoning, and this is not it. Something on this scale takes years to be properly developed, as traffic studies are done first, neighborhood impact studies are done, public engagement meetings with city planning, not just presentations, can occur, meetings with neighborhood organizations occur, and residents are given the time to understand the proposal and its long-term ramifications. So City Council, please hold this ordinance at least until the Oakland plan is completed. I have a note that Millie Sass is on or trying to get on, and she may have the name Wooden Canoe. So if you would please let her in. Thank you.
Thanks, Elena. We'll work it out. Melissa McSwiggan, you are next, and you are followed by Millie Sass, who will figure out how to get Millie on. Hey, hi, Melissa.
Hey, hi, members of council. Thank you for scheduling this public hearing. And I really echo basically what all the other speakers have just said. I have been an Oakland resident, property owner, and landlord, and I've been participating in the Oakland plan over the past year, which has been a really inclusive, process with a dedicated group of people, very civil. It's been going well. So, this proposed zoning change came as a bit of a shock. And so I definitely have concerns about the process of this zoning, as well as the intended outcome if such zoning were enacted, although I don't know the full scope of what is of interest by the developer. But anyway, I really just echo everyone's concerns expressed here today. And I hope that we can just let this go through work it through the community process. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Madam Clerk, how are we able to get Millie on? Hi, Millie. Millie Sass? Millie, you might be muted. Yep. Millie?
Not Millie. I had to use her link since my link, Joan Dickerson's link, was never sent to me.
Well, Joan, we have you here. We're gonna follow.
21, right.
We're gonna follow the order we have here, Joan.
Right, please do. I'm just saying that's where the confusion may be coming because I came in with Millie's link.
Okay, we'll be
So
Joan,
go find her. Go
you're
find her.
you're a little further down the line. You're 21, Joan.
I know. Go find.
And we'll bring Millie in when she's ready. Okay. But we might have to come back to Millie. Okay.
No, here I am. Here I am. Do you hear me?
Yes, Millie.
Oh,
Hi.
I'm sorry. I'm Wooden Canoe.
You're fine.
I don't know how to change my name on your version of Zoom. But anyway, here I am. I'm Wooden Canoe. And yes, what I want to say is that, yes, I am opposed to what I've been hearing about the Walnut Capital Project. I've been going to some of their meetings. They've been very poorly attended, maybe only half a dozen, and they seem to be repeat attendees as well. So even their own rollout of their plans has not been well executed. And this is not the way that zoning is done, especially on this scale. Planning Commission's great, but their review is no substitute for intense public scrutiny of what they're proposing. And their plans actually negate some of the overlay, the OPR districts that we already have. And it just seems silly and very self-serving on their part. And and as other people have said, we're in the midst of our Oakland plan. And many of us have put unpaid hours and hours participating, and to have all of this just dumped down the drain and saying, no, we're going to fast forward on this part of it seems unfair and unrealistic. There's nothing about affordable housing. They give some lip service to it, but there's really nothing in there because they say they can't say what the marketable rent should be. And it's not too late to wait for the Oakland plan. So what I would like to ask for is I would like to ask City Council to block sending this to the Planning Commission for at least 6 months or until the Oakland plan is complete, and to have that robust public engagement that we know that we're all we're all in it for you. And this is something I've lived in Oakland for 40 years. And, in 40 years, I'm not going to be around, but I sure would like it to be a place that my grandchildren would like to live. And if I see, if what happens is what I see, what Walnut Capital is planning, I don't think that's going to be true. And so either follow proper procedures for the public realm ordinances, and maybe even just reject their proposal totally right now.
Okay,
Thank you.
Millie, thanks. Thank you. April Silser, I hope I said that correctly, C-L-I-S-U-R, April, and you'll be followed by Barbara Warwick.
Hello. Yes, I'm April Closuro, and I live at 347 Kircher Street. I'm a Greenfield resident. I'm testifying today because as a resident of Greenfield, I believe Oakland development affects me. And because I believe the handling of this request for zoning change will affect the outlook of all neighborhoods regarding community planning. First, I will clearly state that I'm against consideration of the bill for zoning change until such time as the Oakland plan is released and publicized. Even if the proposed zoning change and plan development is seen to be brilliant, even if the developers think they have attended enough community meetings to know what the community wants, and even if there would be time for public comment on that bill separately, that still does not respect the public process. Genuine community planning processes take considerable time and effort from professionals and community stakeholders. It is not acceptable for a developer to be encouraged in seemingly saying, okay, we think we know enough about community needs now to pass muster. We're going to go on our own and submit a plan for acres of this neighborhood. Neighborhood groups have an expectation that the whole reason for completing a plan is to then have conversations with developers and others about how the market might fit into various community needs. Where there is overlap, great. But if this bill goes to council now, the conversation with the community will take place in a setting where officials of government have already put their fingers a bit onto the scale. This takes away some trust. We community residents need to call for a clarification and stand up for what constitutes public participation. The media accounts that I read framed this as a situation where the developer attended some or maybe even many of the Oakland community planning meetings. The mayor's office perceived that the plan would align with what the community would want based on what it heard so far. And finally, that the community will still have a chance to comment on the particular bill. But no, you have to put in the work. The community representatives deserve that, and they have to actually see the proposal and have a chance to comment on the proposal and give their support or not. Otherwise, nothing is genuine about that relationship. Genuine process means you don't put the cart before the horse. In other words, the bill should never appear before the community planning process is finished, especially not without any discussion or vetting by the community groups involved. I would encourage that if we don't already have one, there should be a community planning bill of rights for community organizations, especially ones that are registered community planning organizations. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that, Barbara, was that you? No, I think we went from Mabel into Barbara during that. We're having a little bit of a technical difficulty here. And the system is kind of locking up on us, although it appears that we have returned. So Barbara, did you have a opportunity to speak, Barbara Warwick?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, so my name is Barb Warwick. I live in 4 Mile Run. I'm speaking here today to stand with my neighbors in Oakland in asking that council hold the vote on Walnut Capital zoning change until they have completed their neighborhood plan. Todd Rideboard, who I believe is the president of Walnut Capital, had the audacity to say that OPDC and others are, quote, abusing the process by asking for this hearing, when he may as well have been guiding the mayor's hand as he drafted this legislation as a quick political favor before slipping out the door. It doesn't surprise me that the president of Walnut Capital considers Oakland's demand for a complete and comprehensive public planning process to be, quote, frivolous. It is this same disdain for public engagement and the prioritization of developer over human interests that earned Bill Peduto a pink slip from all of us. The question is, council members, what do you think? What do you think about the residents of your districts who take the time out of their lives to participate in community organizations, to send emails, make phone calls, engage in planning, come to meetings like these in the middle of a workday, all in an effort to make our city a better place to live? From where I stand in the run, OPDC is a powerhouse, right? When it comes to sway in this city, from where I stand, Oakland has it in spades. So if you're going to brush them aside, if you're going to tell them that their neighborhood plan doesn't matter, that big money developers can just do what they will, what hope is there for the rest of us? It's time for city council to prove that they care about Pittsburgh and its people as much as we do. So please, I'm asking you, listen to the people of Oakland who've taken the time to be here today and show Walnut Capital that it's the people of this city who you represent. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara, thank you. Ziggy Edwards, you're our next registered speaker, followed by Chris Rossello. So Ziggy, are you with us? Yes, he's logged in. Ziggy, you logged in. You might be
Hello?
muted.
Oh,
Hi.
can you hear me? Sorry, it took me a minute. I had to sign in. My phone was locked.
Okay.
Okay.
You're fine.
Well, thank you all for having this meeting, and thanks for taking the time to listen to my remarks today. As you know, my name is Ziggy Edwards. I live in the Run. I'm also here to support my neighbors in Oakland who oppose ramming through a zoning change for this Oakland Crossings plan. The plan has all the hallmarks of Mayor Peduto's chainsaw approach to development. Politicians and private interests hammering out business deals behind closed doors, then dropping the results on affected communities as fully formed plans that are then fast-tracked through a subverted quote-unquote public engagement process of allowing constituents to voice objections and then steamrolling over them. Down here in the Run, as Barb mentioned, we are all too familiar with how this works, thanks to our experience with the Mon-Oakland Connector Plan, which was unveiled to us in a Pittsburgh Post-Gazette article back in 2015. And that grant that they originally applied for stemmed from a public-private partnership between the city of Pittsburgh, Pitt, and CMU. None of our neighbors down here in the Run were ever consulted about it before that was dropped on us. In our experience, when powerful entities try to sneak around the public process, it is not because they believe their plans will benefit the affected communities. And like another speaker said, our communities are not for sale to the highest bidder. So I implore City Council not to rubber stamp the agenda of an outgoing administration tarnished by its anti-democratic track record. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay, Ziggy, thank you. Chris Rossello, followed by Jonathan Kamen.
Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Chris Rossello, Policy Director at Pittsburgh Community Reinvestment Group and a resident of District 1. PCRG is a nonprofit organization made up of a coalition of over 60 community-based organizations and community development corporations located throughout the city of Pittsburgh. We also advocate for responsible development in our member communities that involve a robust public planning process, transparency, and resident equity. On December 24th, we sent a letter to Councilman Kraus to express our concern with the Oakland Crossing zoning legislation on behalf of our member, Oakland Planning and Development Corporation, that highlight many of the concerns that have been expressed today. Our main issue with the proposal is that Oakland is currently undergoing a community planning process facilitated by the Department of City Planning that includes a large portion of the project area. And we view this attempt by the developer to rezone portions of the community in the middle of a comprehensive planning process as irresponsible and doesn't follow a community-driven development process. Sending this bill straight to the Planning Commission would shortchange the Oakland community and would undercut the Oakland plan. Moreover, there have not been any public discussions specific to Walnut Capital's proposal, such as building heights, density, building setbacks, and inclusion of affordable housing. If this rushed and backwards process can happen in the Oakland neighborhood, we are very concerned that it would set a dangerous precedent for future proposals in other neighborhoods. We respectfully request the City Council table this legislation until the city planning process has concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Jonathan is live. Jonathan, you're next, followed by James Jung.
Excuse me 1 second. Good afternoon, members of council. My name is Jonathan Cain, and I represent Walnut Capital. I'm here today to set a couple issues straight so that you can understand sort of where we are in the process and how we got here. Excuse me, my client planning team has attended more than 39 meetings for over a year in working through the Oakland plan and the Oakland planning process. The outcome of these meetings has been an identification of goals that Oakland would like to have achieved within Oakland. They include a grocery store, a bridge across the Boulevard of the Allies, housing near jobs, usable green space, transformation of the Boulevard of the Allies, pedestrian greenway connectors, walk to work housing, and other items which would improve the lives of Oakland. I would also note that the groups that were part of the Oakland plan put out a letter in March of 2021, recognizing that a development would happen in Oakland during the Oakland planning process. They recognize that development of a community is a process that cannot be put on hold, and in fact, legally cannot be subject to a moratorium. But they asked developers during the development of this plan to go ahead and to meet the goals as set forth in this letter. We have answered that call and we have met those goals. What we have heard today and continue to hear from OPDC is that instead of having public process and instead of having process that's prescribed by your code as to what a zoning text amendment looks like, there should be no process and there should be a moratorium. No process is not process. What we are asking for is to allow the legislation to proceed as prescribed by the city zoning code. Allow it to go to council or go to planning commission, allow public comment to take place, and then allow it to come back to council for a vote. Excuse me. That is the way the process works. I would note that you are hearing from some voices related to Oakland Planning and Development's call to go ahead and to rise up, so to speak, to stop this process. I would ask that you give us a chance to look at the merits of this legislation, to look at the merits of our suggestions, and let's have a debate on the merits. Oakland Planning was a signatory to this letter in March of 2021 that said, developers, as you're developing, please embrace the appropriate process and please embrace these goals. We have embraced these goals. We have met these goals. And most importantly, time is of the essence, because in order to leverage the massive infrastructure improvements that Oakland needs, the $35 to $50 million worth of work that has to happen, we have a unique opportunity that has been provided to us by the pending legislation and Recovery Act. Give us a chance to move this forward so that we can go ahead and make progress. Thank you.
Jonathan. Thank you. Forgive me. James Jung. James, you're next, and you're followed by Janice Markowitz.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
My name is James Jung. I live on Tennyson Avenue in Oakland. Do people in Pittsburgh care about history, beauty, environment, and culture? Some Pittsburghers over the last 300 years have simply viewed the place as a stockpile of assets to be exploited for wealth and commerce. I mourn the destruction of CMU's handsome Skibo Hall, which I suspect will be replaced with an ugly prefab construction of glass, metal, and concrete, devoid of any visible human handcraft. Those with a financial interest have called this progress. This week, I learned that Carlow University will be destroying the beautiful St. Agnes Church, which is better looking than any other building within view of it. Those with a financial interest will call this progress. And now I fear that Walnut Capital intends to destroy the handsome Art Deco Isley's building, an edifice older than most of us on this Zoom call. Walnut Capital will probably call it progress. Like most of Pittsburgh, Oakland is a cobbled mess of some beautiful quality architecture alongside some ugly architecture, some of it new. In the roughest analysis, the difference between the good, the bad, and the ugly seems to be the era in which the building was made. Pre-World War II architecture enjoys the investment of ambitious design, quality, expensive materials, and the handwork of tradesmen and craftspeople that really impart a lasting soul upon an old building. Buildings erected after World War II often lack the same level of design ambition, are made of cheap prefab materials, and are stripped of any handcraft like masonry, carving, tile work, the very evidence that a talented person once touched, created, and loved this building. Skibo Hall, St. Agnes, Isley's, these are the types of buildings which we should be fighting to preserve, and we must encourage their adaptive reuse. Beautiful buildings in Pittsburgh and everywhere else are always pulled down by moneyed interests with self-serving better ideas. A building, beautiful or ugly, affects the entire fabric of the community, even if we only look at it as we walk past. The character of Oakland is dependent on preserving these pre-World War II buildings. Their replacement will forever change the historical atmosphere of their neighborhoods. Pittsburgh is a vibrant and regrowing city, but self-serving motives have allowed some of Pittsburgh's best architecture to be destroyed. Progress is always the stated reason, and those who care about history, culture, and beauty.
James, your time expired, but thank you for being with us. Janice Markowitz. Janice, you're next, followed by James Altis.
Hello.
Hi, Janice.
Hi. Thank you all for having this hearing and thank everyone for their participation today. I would strongly ask in opposition for all council members to consider honor the people as opposed and process as opposed to special interests. Honor inclusion as opposed to exclusivity and special interest. Stop bulldozing we, the people of Oakland and throughout this city. We, as someone myself, many people spoke, they've lived here 40 years or longer. I have spent the last week fielding comments from various people, stakeholders, shareholders, landlords, people who live here, people who come to attend, to enjoy the amenities of this city. Let not one developer decide the fate. If there is merits in any development, let it be meritorious by the process and shared participation by the people. It reeks of lack of transparency. That is worth repeating. It reeks of lack of transparency. We need transparency. We need to honor the process. This is the first time that I can remember in almost half a century that something like this has been an attempt to pull this off. If it is, I believe even those people that are presenting such a bill will regret this. Please honor those people, shareholders, stakeholders throughout the community, throughout the city of Pittsburgh. Let us be a city of inclusion, not exclusion, not of special interest. Let's honor all. There is no reason that this bill cannot be held until we have all parties involved and honor the process has been put in place. Do not circumvent those who are hired civil servants to look at these things, to process these things, who are involved. To circumvent all of the people and all of the process. Many are questioning why. This is not just about the end of Mayor Peduto leaving office and trying to force something through. We need to stop and we all need to come together. And if there's merits in this development, it will proceed. For now, stop.
Thank you, Janice. James Altis, forgive me if I mispronounced. You're next, followed by Henry. Help me, Madam Clerk. Deanna Sosi. James, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hi, welcome.
All right. I'm James Altis. I live on North Dithridge Street. Previously, I was a resident of Friendship for 20 years. I'm opposed to this bill partially because I think it sets a very bad precedent over the entire planning process for the not just for Oakland, but for the rest of the city. We have a bill that was sent to council by a lame duck mayor, trying to subvert the planning process before he leaves office to reward a specific developer in this case. Because of this, the requirements for affordable housing will not be discussed for this process. The other thing that disturbs me about this bill is we've changed the process so that if the Planning Commission doesn't respond immediately, it's automatic approval instead of the way the Planning Commission now works, whereas if they don't respond in 90 days, it's automatic disapproval. This is another shortening of the process to make it more difficult for people to speak out on development issues, etc. I'm not a great public speaker, but I find this a very bad precedent to be coming before the council at this time, presented by a mayor who is leaving office, rewarding developers before he leaves office. That's it.
James, you did good. Thank you for being here. Henry, you're next, followed by Guy Giampolo. Henry, you with us? You show him on, Madam Clerk? Nope, he may not be with us. If he does come on, we'll come back to Henry. But for now, Guy, you're next. Is Guy on? Guy, you're on. You might be muted.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you. Hi, Guy.
Great. I could go over the same points that most of those folks were going over. Just let me shoot some things off to you. First off, is there an investigative reporter, hopefully he's in the audience somewhere, who's not beholden to the large advertisement revenue stream of the University of Pittsburgh or its affiliate UPMC? I believe right now that the University of Pittsburgh is actually remaining neutral, so to speak. I'm not sure. I heard this, but I've heard no opposition. So let me just run down this. Bobby Wilson introduces the bill. University of Pittsburgh graduate in political science. That's our council, one of the councilmen. Lives over in the north side, where on his webpage there are several small business districts located throughout the sector, rather a centralized commercial area, stately Victorian homes, blah, blah, blah. Okay. University of Pittsburgh graduate. We go down to the development arm, Walnut Capital, top guys, Greg Perlman. University of Pittsburgh graduate, Walnut Capital. The next guy, founding partner and president, Todd Rebord, University of Pittsburgh law graduate. We go down, Ron Rokovich. That's the husband of one of the other women that's a leader, I believe. Michael Goldstein, the financial officer, University of Law student, graduate. Go down a little further. Hey, Bill, there he is, Bill Panuto, University of Law student graduate, okay? So, might beg worth a little looking into. It's not how zoning's supposed to work, especially on this scale. It's not supposed to happen like this. Planning Commission is great, but the review is no substitute for public engagement by the Department of City Planning. We're in the midst of a comprehensive neighborhood planning process. It's crazy for the city to undercut its own professionals this way. Our neighborhood is complex and this zoning bill is an oversimplification. When the Oakland plan is finished, it will include zoning mandating affordable housing development. They're trying to circumvent that whole idea. It's not too long to wait for the Oakland plan. Those are simplifications of what's going on, but somebody needs to investigate this. It smells fishy. Everybody, even the attorney that just spoke, graduate of the University of Pittsburgh. Are you not, sir? Come on, man. Is there an investigative reporter that's not beholden to the city to the university, who has claimed to remain neutral, that can do a story on this? Honestly, something's wrong here. I lived in our university. I lived in Oakland all my life. I got pictures on the shelf downstairs. The university's being built behind my house. They become the worst neighbor in the world. They have everything to do with what's going on right now.
Thanks, Guy. Wanda Wilson, you are next, and you are followed by Mike Madden. Wanda, welcome.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can. Thanks, Wanda.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Executive Director of Oakland Planning and Development. I'm also a city resident in City Council District 8. And my first job here in Pittsburgh was as a city planner in the Department of City Planning. I worked 10 years as a public servant on behalf of city residents, and civil servants write zoning legislation, not private developers. The process of this bill being introduced is fundamentally wrong. It's a threat to the public interest for every single city resident in each council district. Zoning proposals should go through iterative, months-long engagement led by city planning before going to the Planning Commission. And when I talk about iterative, it's back and forth with lots of input from community members who see how things change before zoning ordinances are actually written or presented to the Planning Commission. Zoning should not be written by a private developer behind closed doors and introduced by the mayor completely separate from the city planning department. Hold this legislation and do not put it forward. It is fundamentally wrong. There's no inclusionary zoning in Oakland. OPDC advocates for inclusionary zoning. We want affordable housing and equitable development in our community. The Oakland plan has priorities identified for affordable housing, inclusionary zoning, and value capture mechanisms to ensure equitable development in our community. This is what we stand for. This is what we need to have in Oakland. You heard from John Kain, Walnut Capital's attorney, and I'd like to clarify some of the mistakes that he made in his statement. They handpicked goals, and all of those goals that have been put forth have yet to be vetted and finalized as actual recommendations in the plan. And there is a letter to developers for this sort of interim portion of time while we're planning. But what Mr. Kain left out was that it actually talks about affordable housing as a priority in our community. And it really is geared toward a development project, like one site, not a whole-scale rezoning of a whole area of the neighborhood. And you know, if we're really talking about city recovery, infrastructure dollars, that really also should be through the public sector. Let's have an open and transparent process about infrastructure investments. Not, again, this should not be led by a private developer. The Oakland community deserves effective community process. And this, again, this process that this has been introduced is fundamentally wrong. Let's protect the public interest and hold this.
Thanks, Wanda. I appreciate you being here. Mike Madden, you're next. And then after you, Mike, is Randy Sargent. Madam Clerk, do we show Mr. Madden on? No? So Mr. Madden may not be with us. If he does join us, we will come back to him. Randy, you're up next if you're with us. Randy Sargent. He's on, okay. And Tyreek, Ty, you'll be next.
Hi, thanks for having me here today. My name is Randy Sargent, and I live on Fraser Street in Oakland. Together with my neighbors, I help run an after-school technology and arts program here in South Oakland, serving our local youth. Over recent decades, as rents have gone up faster than the income of our residents, we in Oakland have lost 40% of our Black fellow residents. That's 1,600 of our neighbors, while population of other races in Oakland has in aggregate increased. In the past years, as I've been helping run our after-school program, I've seen many families of our program's kids lose their housing, all families of color. After being evicted, I've watched families try to find alternative housing in Oakland, but be unable to find anything affordable without a long waiting list. I've seen our neighborhood's evicted kids and parents separated from each other when they become homeless. I've seen our neighborhood's parents and kids lose possessions on the curb, having no place to bring them. As currently written, Walnut Capital's bid to remove residential zoning in favor of unrestricted zoning will, in my belief, result in tearing down many units of low rent housing to be replaced by luxury high-rise buildings, offices, luxury high-rise dwellings, displacing our current residents and bringing in new and more wealthy residents instead. And that is if Walnut Capital decides to build housing at all. Remember, they're asking to remove the restriction to build residences altogether. They're unzoning residential here. In our city today, with our critical shortage of affordable housing, this move would destroy affordable housing, and if it builds any new housing at all, it will be unaffordable to our current residents. Rather than sending the current bill to the Planning Commission, I request a real public engagement period where we can discuss a modified zoning that will include requirements written into that zoning about three things that I've heard rise to the top in the unfinished Oakland planning process, which are increasing long-term affordable housing, creating living wage jobs for current residents, and creating opportunities for our youth. Walnut Capital states that they want to serve our cities and our residents' needs in return for the zoning changes they request. But the needs they list don't well match the needs I hear in my neighborhood or that I've seen centered in the Oakland planning process meetings that I've participated in. My dad told me measure twice before cutting once. Let's take the time to make sure our community's needs are truly reflected before we make this decision for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Ty, you're next. And then Joan Dickerson, you're after Ty. Is Tyreek on? Yes, Ty, you're on. You're up. Ty, you're muted.
Hello?
Tyreek?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can. Hi, Ty. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I want to thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak today. It seems like every time I come to one of these city council meetings, the first question on my mind is like ridiculously, what is it that we are talking about? This very clearly to me, from the position that I sit as the president of a community organization that attended a meeting with these individuals that are representing this project. At that same meeting, these folks gave us a timeline for what this project would detail, in that they detailed that they would follow the appropriate courses of action for this particular development. They said that we wouldn't even be in front of city council until November or December. This is very much out of line with what I expect from competent people who are running our city. I'm young. A lot of you all are older than me. When I look at the people that are representing our districts, that are representing young people, I really implore you all to not screw us over. So when I come to these meetings and I aspire to sit in chairs that you all are sitting in to represent our city to the best of our ability, I urge you all to set the example for us so that we're not picking up the pieces of private developers and outgoing mayors serving their self-interest. That is not the city that we should live in. And you all know that and understand that. So I would really urge you all to follow the recommendations of my my coworkers and my neighbors and other people that have spoken before me on this call and hold that bill. Thank you.
Okay, Ty, thanks very much. Joan, you're up, and followed by Geraldine. Forgive me, Geraldine. I'm going to leave it at that. And then Jeff Marin, you're after. So Joan, welcome. The floor is yours. Is Joan on? She was earlier. Joan, I know she's here. She spoke earlier. Yeah. Joan, we're going to keep on to speak. We'll keep it open. And if you find your way back to us, we're going to bring you on. Geraldine, you're next, please, followed by Jeff Marin. No, is she maybe not on?
Come on.
Hi.
Actually, now it's Geraldine. Thank you very much.
Yes, my name is pronounced Geraldine. I am the Community Engagement Specialist here at Oakland Planning and Development Corporation. Thank you for having me. In the last 2 weeks, I've had the honor of speaking to Oakland residents that have lived here for years and I have learned the beautiful history of this neighborhood. They have expressed their concerns of being displaced by this development plan. To Jonathan, who spoke earlier, you mentioned this plan would improve the life of Oakland residents. I don't think losing your home or neighborhood is an improvement. And as a recent graduate from the Graduate School of Public International Affairs, where I spent the past 2 years learning about how public policy works and how important it is to include community input when it comes to drafting legislation, I'm appalled that the proper steps were not taken when drafting this bill and how it was just sent straight to Planning Commission. I don't understand the urgency to get this approved, especially when there has been months of planning and open discussion with the Oakland plan. The Oakland plan has taken into account community input, such as including affordable housing, which to my knowledge is something not included in Walnut Capital's plan. By approving this bill, you are setting a dangerous precedent and demonstrating that to the community that community input does not matter when it comes to community affairs. And if the price is right, big developers can come and remove us from our neighborhoods and do what they please. So I'm urging you to hold this bill at least until after the Oakland plan is complete. Thank you.
Geraldine, thank you. And thank you for, I apologize for the mispronunciation. Jeff, you're next. And you're followed by Candice Formley. Stefan?
Thank you for holding. Yeah, I'm here. Thank you for holding this hearing. Knowing that zoning is relatively static and that changes are heavily deliberated, give me the peace of mind to invest in my home and my neighborhood. The current zoning of my neighborhood, Central Oakland, is one of the reasons I was comfortable buying a home and moving here. And I do want more high quality housing for people of all income levels in Oakland. But zoning is so foundational to neighborhood development that to change the shape of the foundation without talking in depth to the people who have built upon it is not appropriate. There's a planning process underway that city planners and residents have put significant time and effort into. I'd like to see that work honored, not disregarded. The effort going into this process is considerable. And this is exactly the type of the project that should be discussed as part of the Oakland plan, not apart from it. Lastly, I'm concerned with the type of partner that Walnut Capital is going to be. When I read about the project in the newspaper, they used disparaging language in talking about the community group that represents me. And that is not a good way to start. So please hold this bill and let the planning process work. And maybe I'll end with a question. Is Jonathan Kain still in the room?
He is not, Jeff.
That's not a good way to start either, when he's not interested in hearing what all the people have to say.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you being here. Candice Formley, you're next. You're followed by Henry Schwartz.
Hi, my name is Candice Formley, and I'm also currently holding my 18-month-old son. So if it's a little noisy, I apologize. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. My husband, Matt, was actually born in South Oakland. His parents felt committed to that place, who also were born and raised here in Pittsburgh. I am a transplant, but I got introduced to Pittsburgh through going to Carnegie Mellon. I was a student and I knew nothing about the city because I lived on campus and I spent most of my time in Oakland about 15 or 10 years ago. When we came back to Pittsburgh, we felt like there could be a space. Maybe we should have some responsibility here in Oakland, where my husband also works. So when there was an opportunity to move and be homeowners here 2 years ago, we felt like it was a great open door, and for us and our 3 small children. The only reason we were able to afford a house here in Oakland was because of a generous person who decided he would not sell us a developer rate for our house. Since living here, only in the past 2 years, we've been part of the community engagement process in West Oakland. And we've just gone through enough community meetings to hear how developers have talked about the land in my neighborhood. Just as a warning, we've had developers tell us there's not enough time. You have to move forward on this, or else this vacant land won't be utilized the right way. And since those community meetings, we now have 14 row houses that are being sold for $625,000 each, luxury homes for students, or I wouldn't say students, they said it's going to be for families, but I just don't know what families they're referring to. Those houses have been under construction for 2 years now, just here in Oakland. There's dirt and concrete and dust all over my street. And this is only one small, tiny section of a neighborhood in Oakland. And I can't imagine what would happen if you rezone 19 acres of a neighborhood. I'm just sharing all of this to say that me and my husband, just when we were going even through the Oakland plan, it was amazing to think of how things could change or be improved in our neighborhood for small families with small kids, or middle to low income families. And the question we've had even in the Oakland planning process with the city is there still space for families and children in Oakland? Or is it going to be just a place for commodities for temporary residents to utilize and to access? And that still continues to be our question. When we heard about this proposal to rezone, we were so discouraged because it seemed as though someone was bypassing the whole community process as we feared. And so I guess I'm just requesting that you please hold off on this until there has been complete engagement, just because we've seen micro effects of when a process is rushed. And we just wonder if Oakland will still be a place for children in the next 10 or 15 years. Thank you very much.
Candice, thank you. Henry, you're up, followed by Jennifer Haven. You show Henry Schwartz on, Madam Clerk? No? Okay, Henry's not on now, but if he does come back, we'll make certain we make time for him. Jennifer Haven? We're showing Jennifer on? Okay. Jennifer, you'll be followed by Mark Boliniak. I can't say that last name for love or money, but I know Mark well. Mark, you're after Jennifer.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Hi, great. Hi, my name is Jennifer Haven. I do not live in Oakland. I did go to school there many years ago and fell in love with it. I ended up moving from Oakland to Friendship, where I now am a homeowner on South Pacific Avenue in 15224. I am calling in today on behalf of the Friendship Community Group Zoning and Development Committee. We have been meeting these past couple of weeks, and we've been having communications with each other regarding this bill. We took a vote, and we do not approve of the bill. We wish that City Council would either reject it outright or hold on to it until next year after the Oakland plan can be realized. We also, in friendship, are joining with our Bloomfield neighbors and the business districts around us to form our own plan. It will be called the Bloomfield Plan, but it also includes our neighborhood as well. We are doing that because we were told by city planning officials and by the zoning administrator himself that that is the way that we can best protect who builds what, where, and what that process will look like. We're very invested in starting our neighborhood plan. We're really excited. The city had told us several years ago, if we wanted to have more say in development in our communities, that we should form a registered community organization. We did that. They said, if you want to have more say, then sign up for the Engage Pittsburgh app that the city spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars developing. And we did that. And I look what is happening to Oakland, and I could see that it could happen to us. Oakland Development is an RCO. Their projects go onto the Engage platform that the zoning administrator, that the planning department wishes that they would use. The parks that we develop, the infrastructure projects, the developments through the URA, everything else goes through that planning process. It's very public. I don't know where we turn. If we're doing everything that the city tells us to do, to be engaged citizens, to have a say, to have a voice in what happens in our own neighborhoods, and then you, at a moment's notice, really 3 weeks notice now we've had, that you take that away from our neighbors, what then does that tell us in what kind of a say that we will have in our future when we're participating in our neighborhood plan? If the council members think that this cannot happen in their neighborhoods because there's no development in their neighborhoods, I say be careful what you wish for, because Larimore, Hazelwood, Strip District probably didn't think that they'd be seeing hundreds, if not thousands.
Thank you, Jennifer. Mark Oliniak, you're next. Hi, Mark. I'm sure Mark's on.
Hello. Yes, I just
Hi, Mark.
had to unmute there. Hi. Thanks for having us. So I'd like to tell people I live on Juliet Street, went to Pitt, never left Oakland. I've been in my current location for over 30 years. I ask that their proposal be rejected or at least held in deference to the Oakland plan and the resulting priorities and recommendations. Speaking to the moratorium that Mr. Cain's mentioned, at the beginning of the Oakland plan, we were promised an iPod, the interim planning overlay district, which would have legally implemented such a moratorium, but city planning did not follow through. So I'm just let that be a warning to any other community plans as you're going forward. Don't let that happen. To his comment about $30 to $50 million, I think that level of funding deserves deliberate planning and community input. I object to essentially rescinding much of OPRD and other residential areas that it's going to swallow up through this legislation, which was authored by a private developer. Even the language of this proposal was problematic. In the Oakland public realm, there are already 4 sub-districts A through D, and this newly proposed sub-district E has 3 more sub-districts. This process is being rushed through while the long-awaited Oakland plan is still finishing the public input and recommendations. Rezoning any parts of Oakland are complicated and require much more substantial community input and consideration. This proposed sub-district E is generally incompatible with everything the OPR was created for, namely to protect less intensive uses and from more intensive uses, and to provide a transitional buffer, in particular between EMI and other commercial uses and longstanding residential areas. People do still live in Oakland. Even the purpose statement shows how unnecessary this proposed OPR is. Virtually all of the things mentioned can be done with the zoning as it is. Many of the existing buildings are not built to current limits. Much of the transportation issues mentioned will require both the cooperation and years of planning and work by at least the city and PennDOT, none of which has actually been started. and neither entity has had any representatives appear at any of the presentations from Walnut Capital to answer any questions. At these presentations, any dissenting opinions were basically dismissed, despite the fact that this proposal was lacking a number of details, like who's going to pay for a lot of the changes to the public properties and rights of way. A number of amenities alleged to be promised to be or to the community are mischaracterized. Things like green space in particular on McKee Place are currently required setbacks. They're removed through this OPR implementation and with very little actual change presented as an amenity, but the developer gets buildings more than 4 times their current height. Raising the height as proposed on McKee and Halkett will turn Coulthard Street, just for instance, into Coulthard Canyon. So again, I ask that you reject this or at least hold it until after the Oakland plan is finalized and those recommendations can be applied to whatever comes next with this particular proposal.
Thank you, Mark. Christopher Daddario, followed by Robert Lincoln. Chris, are you with us?
I am with you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi. Thanks again. Thanks, City Councilors. My name is Chris Daddario. In 1997, I chose to move to Pittsburgh to start a business called Just Ducky Tours. Before I made my decision to invest my time and my resources, my attention in Pittsburgh, I was invited to do business in San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Baltimore, but I chose Pittsburgh. I made it my home and I fell in love with the city. And I certainly think of myself as a Pittsburgher. While I lived and worked in the city, I learned one important lesson. That's Oakland is and was Pittsburgh's front door. Just Ducky Tours carried over 2 million passengers. We forged important and durable relationships with Oakland businesses and its many colleges and universities. We were proud to serve thousands of students and potential students, many in town with their families. They were touring Oakland, deciding if Oakland would be their new home. For tens of thousands of students, parents, entrepreneurs, potential employees, their introduction to the Pittsburgh region is via Oakland. And I must tell you, Pittsburgh's front door, so to speak, is not always that inviting. I can speak to the reputational importance of Oakland. You've all heard of the brain drain of people coming to Pittsburgh to study in Oakland and leaving. What if Oakland became a place people didn't want to leave? As a city resident, I've been extremely active in neighborhood organizations, including the Allegheny City Central Association. And in my roles as an entrepreneur, as a Pittsburgher by choice, and just someone who cares about his neighborhood, I saw how holding up projects pushes people out of communities. You'll never get 100% consensus on anything, but people who build communities who want progress, they want opportunities and they want growth. Oakland is the only innovation neighborhood with nearly $1 billion of research funding poured into it yearly that isn't growing. That should alarm you all because it is completely unnecessary. Efforts to stop a transformational development not only blocks progress for Oakland residents, but it deadlocks the entire regional economy. Allegheny County, Pittsburgh, and Oakland, its citizens, its businesses, its institutions of higher learning, its many assets, both large and small, deserve the right for this zoning legislation to move forward so that a full and fair public process will move forward as well. Thanks for your time.
Chris, thank you. Mr. Lincoln, you're next, followed by Deanna Davis.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Bobby Lincoln, and I'm a lifelong Pittsburgher, a former resident of Oakland, and a current graduate student in the neighborhood. First and foremost, I believe that overall, this project is a good thing. It adds much needed housing to Oakland, which will increase the neighborhood's vibrancy and help to stabilize prices in the long term. It also fits perfectly into the preliminary Oakland neighborhood plans that have been released. But beyond that, there's no reason that all development should be ceased while that plan is finalized. To do so would risk stagnating the economic growth that Oakland is seeing, growth that benefits the city as a whole. Additionally, the addition of new units of apartment-style housing to the neighborhood will lower the demand from students for single-family houses, which will make it easier and more affordable for families and other non-student residents to live in Oakland. However, I don't support the way that the zoning changes for this project have been specified. The proposed zoning changes are so specific to such a narrow geographic area that it is clear they will only benefit the developers of this specific project. That is, they clearly were designed to specifically make this project possible for Walnut Capital. applying the same zoning change to a much broader part of Oakland would allow far greater dispersal of these benefits and should be considered instead of the narrow change that has been proposed. I also believe that consideration should be made for the inclusion of affordable housing in the legislation, either via direct inclusionary zoning mandates or via a bonus point system through which developers can earn additional height for including affordable housing, similar to systems that already exist for other project incentives. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Deanna, you are next, followed by Adam Butkus. We showing Deanna on? Okay. If Deanna does come back on, we will gladly bring her in. Adam Butkus, you are next, followed by Kathleen Radock. Adam's here? Good. Hi, Adam. Welcome. Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, my name is Adam Butkus. I live at 306 South Neville Street, which is in the area of Central Catholic High School. I've lived in the same house in Oakland since 1991. I want to thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I really do appreciate the important work you guys have done previously. And today I ask that you do something that's both ethically and procedurally correct. I ask you to please table the bill known as 2021-1906 and follow normal procedures by involving the Oakland communities that will be impacted by this bill. Walnut capital efforts would change 3 city blocks, including home, apartment buildings, and trees that have been part of the residential fabric here for more than 100 years. Please do not bypass normal procedures and forward this bill to the Planning Commission until the process of neighborhood involvement has run its course. I have been a volunteer member on the Planning Commission that consists of Oakland residents and staff members of Oakland-based organizations and businesses. For 2 years, we have been submitting ideas about how to make the neighborhood better and preserve the dynamic feel of our neighborhood. The Planning Commission also wants to secure affordable housing in the area. We understand the need for a grocery store and green space. However, we're not driven primarily by the need for ROI, or return on investment, or annual growth rates. This is where we live and work and go to school. I feel that bypassing the normal council procedures for this bill will damage the reputation of council as a group of credible lawmakers. The great work you have done in the past will be forgotten and it should not happen, nor does it have to. Please do not advance the Walnut Capital proposal to bypass normal channels in the interest of profits. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Adam. Appreciate you being here. Kathleen, you're next, and then Caroline Mitchell, you'll follow Kathleen.
Hello, my name is Kathy Radock, and I'm a resident of the South Side. I work at Oakland Planning and Development Corporation as the Communications and Operations Manager, and I'm testifying today to ask you to allow the Oakland Plan process to finish its work. Please hold Bill 2021-1906 until the Oakland Plan is done. Oakland is a big neighborhood with a diverse population. Every day I come to work with the challenge of finding new ways to encourage residents to engage in neighborhood planning and community conversations. I have to convince people to have faith in the public process. Not everyone has time to talk or even think about this stuff. And for a lot of people who've been burned in the past, it's a heavy lift to convince them to talk with us, to talk with city planning, or to talk with their elected officials. That lift gets 1,000 times heavier when people think the system is rigged. If Walnut Capital can walk into Oakland, buy up a bunch of properties, and then ask the mayor's office to pull strings to let them do whatever they want with them, how am I supposed to keep a straight face while I'm telling people that government works for them, that the system isn't corrupt or broken, and that their input is meaningful and important? Sending this bill to the Planning Commission makes my work and that of my colleagues irrelevant. It will completely disregard all the work that Oakland residents put into trying to make their neighborhood a better place. Please don't do it. Let the public process finish. Thank you.
Kathleen, thank you. Caroline Mitchell, you're next. Hi, Caroline, followed by Christina Howe.
My name is Caroline Mitchell. I'm an attorney.
I'm an engineer. I have been doing community zoning work pro bono since 2008 in Uptown, Oakland, Squirrel Hill, and other counties of Western Pennsylvania. I urge you to table this bill indefinitely. You're sending this bill to the Planning Commission, not to City Planning, but to the Planning Commission, completely disrespects every single person in Oakland and Squirrel Hill who has ever taken innumerable hours of time to give input into the community planning process. What we have here in OPRD, in OPRE, Oakland Crossing, is a developer's dream. What it does is to revoke and render useless the FAR, floor area ratio, height, and lot coverage of OPRD, the Boulevard of the Allies, the Grand Boulevard to Oakland, OPRC, the 5th and Forbes District, repealing its height and FAR and lot coverage, and furthermore repealing Residential Compatibility Standard 916, that developers need to live in conference and concert with the community. Please table this bill. Give the community the respect that it deserves. And I call to your attention Klein versus the City of Pittsburgh, Commonwealth Court 1994. Please give the community groups more than 3 minutes to address these issues. The developer has had far more than 3 minutes with Mayor Peduto's office. Thank you.
Thanks, Caroline. Christina Howe, you're next, followed by Dominic Victoria.
Great. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, Christina, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for having me. Thank you to the council members who are here today to listen to everyone who has gone before me with their very important points and their lived experiences. As Jennifer Haven earlier acknowledged, Bloomfield is entering into a neighborhood comprehensive planning process. And so we've been watching this carefully with our colleagues in Friendship and listened to and talked with both Andrea and Wanda at OPDC and have listened to the things that they have sent out, and while also talking to others and doing our own due diligence on this issue. Bloomfield Development Corporation, I forgot to say I'm a resident of Bloomfield, sorry, and also work with Bloomfield Development Corporation. We feel that this bypassing of the process for zoning changes does a disservice to community members whom we spend a significant amount of time working with so that they can understand the processes that the city uses to make these laws and change these laws. We're currently doing a lot of work with our neighbors so that they understand inclusionary zoning, which our councilwoman introduced in July and is currently pending. It definitely, to echo someone who went before me, it feels that we are lying to our community members, and we're extremely concerned with the precedent that this sets, that a developer, a zoning overlay ordinance can be changed specifically to a developer's needs, one developer, not a larger issue without an intense period of public engagement. So I hope that this is at a minimum tabled until the Oakland plan is complete and that the community has its final product to show where it falls on affordable housing and on other issues that will absolutely affect this development. Thank you.
Christina, thank you. Dominic, you are next, followed by Pamela Lapanucci. Dominic?
Can you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Great. So hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing all right on this Tuesday afternoon. My name is Dominic Victoria, and I'm a lifelong Pittsburgh resident. I'm a graduate of Pittsburgh Obama, and I'm currently a sophomore at the University of Pittsburgh, where I am currently serving as our Community and Governmental Relations Chair for our student government. Today, I come to you in between classes to speak from each of these perspectives, addressing the recent attempt by Walnut Capital to push through a proposal to redraft the zoning code in South and Central Oakland without proper community review. So first, as a lifelong resident who intends to spend the rest of my life in this city, I'm deeply concerned about the precedent any top-down approach to community development sets, not only for Oakland, but for Pittsburgh as a whole. While I might not have been around as long as most of the incredible community advocates who are in attendance today, I've still seen a drastic change in our hometown that comes with new industries that have made their way here. Undoubtedly, we all understand the importance of change, and all proposals should absolutely be given fair consideration. However, it is the way in which this change is brought to the communities that must remain consistent. So throughout the lifespan of the Oakland plan, city planners and community organizers have continuously consulted many of the diverse and often conflicting interests that make up Oakland's vibrant population. From a student perspective, which I must emphasize, it's been deeply gratifying to hear about the past, present, and future considerations given to our population. The key contacts who have approached us have made it abundantly clear that they understand our situation and are attempting to build bridges between us and long-term residents rather than excluding either group. These bridges are clearly still far, far from completion, but it's through processes like truly equitable and inclusive planning that progress is made. A rush in community development is not beneficial for any of the groups that make up Oakland, only those with a financial stake in the speed at which the proposed changes are introduced. Regardless of how you or I may perceive the quality or merits of a given plan, the opinions of those with the most at stake, in this case, of course, Oakland's community members, must be considered. I truly believe that the thorough, public, and transparent review that the Oakland plan has emerged out of is the only way this can happen. So to conclude, I want to emphasize that I, other students, long-term residents, organizers, planners will always have different visions for what our neighborhood will look like. For me, this involves emphasis on homeownership and marginalized populations, green space, access to grocery stores, and something conveniently missing from this plan, inclusionary zoning. Specifics will always differ from person to person. What matters is that all our voices are considered. So as a Pitt student, community advocate, future resident, lifelong Pittsburgher, I do ask that the Oakland plan is not thrown to the side in favor of a top-down approach that exists purely to avoid a slightly longer wait and a more thorough review. For now, the only way it seems this can happen is by holding off on this bill. So I'd like to thank all the folks at City Planning and the OPDC who have been considerate and consistent in their support. And I'd like to thank you all for your attendance. And yeah, please hold off on this bill.
Thanks, Dominic. Pamela, you're our last registered speaker of the afternoon. Are you with us, Pamela?
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I am a lifelong resident, born and raised here in Oakland. I am not here at the request of OPDC as a rise up, as the gentleman from Walnut Capital suggested. My parents have lived in this neighborhood for over 70 years, and I have raised my children here. I went to Pitt. I am vehemently opposed to pushing this through. The way Walnut Capital handled this is very undermining and backhanded. They are not interested in what's best for the Oakland community. They do not know the Oakland community the way we, the residents, and OPDC and our community groups know Oakland. They are very much in it for what's in it for them. It was mentioned once that, you got to look at Pitt. Pitt is very much a partner with Walnut Capital and with what happens with Walnut Capital. And you have to wonder why Bill Peduto is rushing this through the way he is. What is in it for him before he leaves office? It's just very disheartening that I personally, my street will be extremely affected by this Oakland crossing. They have not taken into consideration how traffic is going to be affected. Not only that, but when you drive down Forbes, it's like darkness. Because of all these big buildings, you're essentially going to put Coltart into a valley of darkness, Louisa Street, valley of darkness. My street will be dark because of the buildings and the sizes that they want to build. You drive down the boulevard, all you're going to see is buildings. You drive Helkett, it's just going to be buildings. You're tearing apart the very fabric of what Oakland is and the history of Oakland. And, you know, you just need to please, as city council, take into consideration what your constituents are asking for, and don't just push through and do big business like Walnut Capital and their partners at Pitt. We're just asking for the right and the process to be followed the way it should be. So please do not push this bill through. Please table it and let the discussion happen the way it needs to happen.
Thanks, Pamela. Appreciate you being here. So, excuse me, that does exhaust the list of registered speakers. Madam Clerk, at this point in time, how do we handle the 1-minute speakers? We don't. So we have exhausted our list of speakers for the day. I'll open up to members if they wish to make any comment. Otherwise, I'll call for a motion to adjourn the public hearing.
I didn't have a chance to say, I'd like to say something. That was really fast, sorry.
What, you wanted to speak? Glory be.
Teresa, I think I hear someone else's voice, but I don't know who it is.
I'm not sure, Councilwoman. You have the floor.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I just want, as always, thank everyone for coming out. And I have written down some questions that I heard about process. What I am wondering myself that I'll be looking into is the way I always understood zoning, like map amendments to happen, was that the zoning administrator initiates them and they go through the planning department and the planning process, and then the planning commission. And the first time we see them is with a recommendation from planning commission. So I think the zoning administrator can initiate a zoning map change. I think if you're an owner of a piece of property, you walk into the zoning office and you apply for a map amendment. And again, that initiates the process with the zoning administrator and who takes it to the planning commission. I also understand that council members can initiate legislation. So I have been the sponsor of legislation to do a map amendment, to do, you know, the inclusionary zoning overlay, and then also to add, most recently, add Polish Hill and Bloomfield to that inclusionary zoning overlay. I don't see anywhere that a mayor puts legislation or initiates legislation for a zoning map amendment. And so that's my question here, is kind of, we haven't seen this before. And so what is the path? And it looks like if the property owner wants to change the zoning category of his or her property, that their first stop is the zoning desk. So I'm confused about what happens first. And then I also have heard here in testimony that there's the planning department is currently engaged in a neighborhood planning process. And this mayor's legislation is asking for them to do something else concurrently to that. So those are the questions that I don't have answers to, and I'll be, you know, looking into and as we move towards discussion.
So, Councilwoman, in a more formalized process, we could assemble those questions and send those down to our zoning administrator for clarification. I'd be happy to do that.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I can follow up with you. I appreciate it.
Great. Thank you. Madam Clerk, you'll assist us with that? Thank you very much. Councilman Coghill.
Yes. First, I want to thank all the callers. That's really why I attended today. I wanted to hear from the people of Oakland. And I don't claim to know all the impact that this development might have, whether it be positive or negative. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of both. And I can only hope that they can come to a consensus with Walnut Capital with this project. But I did want to remark, Walnut Capital, what they did out at Bakery Square was really transforming. And this, I think, will be a legacy project for them. They're local developers, which I really like. They're proud, passionate Pittsburghers. And I hope that the Oakland community and they can come to a consensus. And, you know, one other thing I did want to say is you never have to ask Walnut Capital if they're hiring our local labor and trades to build their projects. It's almost a given that they are, which is another good reason to have local developers. So that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilman. Council President Kel Smith.
Okay, I wasn't going to speak. I was going to let you get out of here, but I am going to say that I actually was born and raised in Oakland. A lot of some of the callers know that, but I will, and I want to thank them for coming on and speaking. But I actually grew up across from St. Agnes Church, so I've seen a lot happen in Oakland over the years. And one of the things I will say is that I trust Councilman Kraus. It killed me when I got here and I didn't represent that area because it is the heart of our family. I mean, my mother lived there from the time they tore the Civic Arena down, or built the Civic Arena, and they tore our house down to build the Civic Arena. She moved to 5th and Robinson across from St. Agnes Church and lived there until she was 98 years old, 2 years ago. Now she's 100. And so my sister, if I have a question about something with Oakland, when I say somebody's in tune with Oakland, I'll send her a text. She'll send out a text. And I just showed Councilman Kraus all the comments from long time Oakland residents in support of this project. Also concerned about, some also concerned about the process, but still supportive of the development. But because I love Oakland so much, I do think they're right in a lot of ways. We do need to rethink development. As you know, I've had a nonprofit in my area that we've turned into different authorities. I've seen another nonprofit where the community doesn't feel like they really speak for them. So I do think that the way we do development in the Pittsburgh area, we do need to rethink it. I think we need to really look into some of the nonprofits, the CDCs and others that are doing things across the city. Really, as I started looking into some of these things because of some other funding and things that were going towards them, I started realizing how many don't file 990s, how many don't file them on time, how many get funding from different sources that would be questionable towards some projects. So I think that they're right in that regard, that we have to look at the whole process all over. And I'll definitely start looking into some of those nonprofits and start looking and seeing what that their 990s are filed on time and all those sorts of things and where their funding sources are coming from. But I just want to say I don't disagree. But because I love Oakland so much, I don't want to see Oakland end up in my district. We have, as you know, on Grandview Avenue, residents fought a development. They fought 2 developments, and I have holes on Grandview Avenue. They call them the pits on Grandview Avenue that have sat for decades, just empty, blighted properties. They became part of the blight because people wanted to fight a development without having another backup plan, what was going to happen when the developer walked away. And we have the other development on the other end. It was supposed to be one Grandview. When you talk about community process, we had 26 or 28 meetings for that project. It's still not done. And it's probably been about 8 years. And so when you talk about the process and you talk about things, I think we got to keep a good eye on how to get development moving and to make sure that it's a benefit to the community, but it's also adding to stability of the community as well. But I think a lot of people have a lot of concerns about the cost of the housing, and I've heard some of the concerns and comments. But I really do think that if anybody had to represent this area other than me, I think it's great that you have Councilman Kraus because he's really good at consensus building. Matter of fact, that's one of the things he told me when I was first elected is you have to build a consensus to get anything done. It was some of my best advice. I had advice from a few people, and you were one of them. And it really is true. You really have to build that consensus. And I do think that you'll get to that point where your community group and the developer are all doing what's in the best interest of this area. So I want to thank you for your work there. If I can help in any way, count me in because Oakland is always going to have a part of my heart. So thank you.
So to close out the the public hearing. I want to thank the petitioner, Andrea Boyko, for assembling this. I'm glad that everybody came out to speak. I know so many of the people on the list personally that I've represented for years and years. What I heard mostly today was really about process and not the project. And there are elements of the project which I believe business advocates, community advocates, residents have lobbied for a very, very long time. And what I hope we don't do is throw the baby out with the bathwater and get caught up in personalities and not focus on the project and the principles. So, but we have time to do that. I have every confidence in this council to take whatever time is necessary for us to work through and figure out what's truly in the best interest of Oakland. And so at this point in time, Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask just to give me a little bit of time. I want to do some follow-ups. As I said, I know any number of people that have phoned in. I'd like to have some time to do some follow-up communication. So I ask that we not place this on the agenda until I've had an opportunity to do some follow-up and speak with some of the people that have called in. I appreciate that time to help me to sort of understand better. But there are one of the urgencies that was expressed to me early on was a byproduct of COVID. And today, what isn't a byproduct of COVID? But the American Rescue Plan dollars, there are about $35 to $50 million that is sequestered to be able to do public realm infrastructure improvement. And there is a real opportunity that money could be leveraged to do the public realm infrastructure improvements on a project such as this. The urgency becomes those projects must be shovel ready. This council knows that very well. We deliberated those dollars for weeks on end before allocation of those dollars, but we have very limited time by which those dollars must be spent, not just allocated. They must be spent and those projects must be completed or we lose those monies. And as it was presented to me, and I will do my due diligence and follow up, that there is about $35 to $50 million that could absolutely go to a project such as this that could provide for necessary public infrastructure improvements that would be left on the table if a project such as this did not see completion. So there's a lot to consider, but we have the time to do it. And I know this council has the skill set to do it. So we'll take the necessary time that we need to clear our heads, think things through, do our follow-up, and take action when the time is appropriate. I appreciate you guys being here and sticking this out with me today. Madam Clerk, thank you as always. And with that, I guess I will I'm sorry, Councilman Wilson.
No.
We always thank our Sergeant at Arms. Pardon me? I'm sorry? Yeah, so yeah, well, I was getting there, except we got sort of caught up in a sidebar there. We're out of practice, Madam Clerk. We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
But no, with that, Councilman Wilson, are you good? I know this is under your committee. I appreciate the little bit of time I need to follow up.
No, thanks for your comments.
Thank you. So with that, then may we have a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
So move.
Second, and all in favor?
Aye.